Now, our first activity this morning is our greetings, and this is where you're going to need your pen and paper right away. So we're here in week 5, week 6 of our quarantine situation. So I thought maybe for this first greetings we would do a little bit of a fun activity. So this activity is called quarantine bingo. Okay, so we're going to play a little quarantine bingo. So here's how it works. In just a moment, I'm going to show you on the next screen, I'm going to show you the bingo board. So basically, on the bingo board, you're going to tell us which of these things have you done during the last 5 weeks. Now, what I'd like to recommend is if you could use your piece of paper, that would be easier. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to use your paper, and each box has a number, 1, 2, 3, and so on. And I'm going to read through the boxes here in just a moment. So on your paper, just write down the number of which of these things you have done. Okay, now I'm going to play along too. And then when we're finished, you're going to enter your numbers in the chat box. So that way we'll compare and see which ones have you guys been doing during this time. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the next screen. So the next screen right now is our quarantine bingo screen. So get ready. I'm going to put it up here on the screen. So here it is. Let's take a look at it. All right, so this is the quarantine bingo board. There are 16 panels. So I'm going to read them kind of quickly here. So number 1, you will put number 1 if you woke up after 10 a.m. at least once during this quarantine. So maybe some of you have gotten up later. Number 2, you'll put number 2 if you attended at least one of our online chats in pajamas. Number 3, you watched an entire TV or movie series. So I know some of you have been watching a lot of TV or movies. Maybe you watched all of the Avengers or all the Star Wars movies or something. For number 4, you'll put number 4 if you haven't been in your car for an entire week. Number 5, if you thought about cutting your own hair or you actually cut your own hair. Number 6, you will put number 6 if you took at least 2 naps in one day. Number 7, you'll put number 7 if you ate cereal for lunch and or dinner at least one time. Number 8, you'll put number 8 if you tried a new recipe but substituted a different ingredient because you didn't have it. For number 9, you'll put number 9 if you've taken your dog out for a walk more than 5 times in one day. For number 10, you haven't worn shoes for an entire day. Number 11, you took a virtual tour of a famous place like a museum, aquarium. You know, many of those places are putting these famous places now you can tour virtually. For number 12, you made a video call with your friends and family. So probably a lot of people will choose that one. Number 13, you organized something in your house or apartment that you normally don't organize. So for example, maybe you organized your silverware drawer or something, or your socks. Number 14, you actually ran your battery down on your phone because you used it so much. So maybe one day you used your phone so much you actually went down to 0 battery. You'll put number 15 if you watched our video from last week. So the Kenton ESL teachers put together a hello video. So you'll put number 15 if you did that. And finally, number 16, you'll put number 16 if you started talking to yourself when you are alone. Well, I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next topic. So our next topic is our expression for the day. Now, again, I've tried to choose expressions that I think are definitely going to reflect what's going on right now. And sometimes it's hard because, you know, I try to find expressions that are sometimes positive. But today, this might be something to think about that might be maybe not as positive, but let's talk about it. So you may have a similar expression in your language, but this particular expression has changed over time. We've used it in different ways throughout sort of the history of America and in English. But the expression is a penny saved is a penny earned. And basically what that means is money we save today. So instead of spending that money, that's money that we will have for the future. Now, of course, the word earned is kind of part of the confusion because in different versions of this expression, some expressions, some versions of this expression will be a penny saved is twice got, which basically means you don't spend it, so you still got that penny. So in this case, this penny saved is a penny earned is actually a little bit of a change on the sort of idea. So even the word earned does not mean necessarily that we earned an extra penny from work. It just means that we didn't spend it. So that's kind of what the meaning is. Now, if you see here on the screen, I don't know, some of you have studied for the citizenship test. So you might recognize this person here. This picture here is Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin is considered one of the important founders of the United States. So again, back in the mid 1700s. And he was a very famous writer. And in fact, he wrote many of these little expressions that Americans still use today. But the truth is, most of those expressions were not his. He didn't create them. He just put them down in a book. And this book became very popular. So I wanted to mention that many people credit this quote to him, to the popularity of this quote. But he did not originate it. This phrase has been around a very long time. But anyway, I thought we would think it this morning about this particular situation. So if you look at my little sentence here at the bottom, it says, a lot of people are trying not to spend their money in a thoughtless way right now. So a lot of people think that they hope a penny saved will be a penny earned. So I thought this morning we would think a little bit about this question. So this is our question for the day. And the question is, many people are worried about money and the economy right now. So again, maybe you've seen this happen here in the United States over the last week or so. We're all under stress. And again, money is a big issue right now, and especially the economy around the world. So I was curious to say right now, what is something that maybe you have stopped buying or maybe stopped spending money on right now, either because it's not possible or because you're saving your money for other purposes. So I thought, again, this would be a chance for us to think, again, what's happening to us right now. So you can give your answer in the chat box or you can use the microphone. But let's think for a moment. What are some things that maybe we're not spending money on, we're delaying because maybe, again, it's not possible, or maybe we're thinking about saving our money. So again, one more time, our expression here today is a penny saved is a penny earned. So again, basically the idea is if we save money today, this is money we'll have for the future. So yeah, sometimes people use it in a way to say, don't waste your money. So in this case, that's kind of the idea. But I think for now we can think about it. Yeah, we're all probably going to have to change how we spend money, and that's probably going to have some negative effects on the economy. So, but for us, it's a necessity. So we understand that. Okay, well, guys, we're going to go ahead and move on in our presentation. So today we're talking about thought groups. So everybody, you're going to need a piece of paper and a pencil for this next part. So let me make sure I've got the screen ready. Okay, good. Okay, so in this, I've got two little listening activities that we're going to do. Now, the idea is, last week we introduced the concept of thought groups. And if you remember, thought groups are how we group information together. So what I'm going to do here in just a moment is I'm going to show you on the screen, we're going to do just four little kind of sentences, and then I'm going to ask you a question. What you are going to do is to choose between either answer A or answer B. So again, you'll need paper and pencil for this activity. So everyone, look at the screen. So you have in each one two choices. So I'm going to give you a moment just to look at the four sentences you see and the two choices for each one. Okay, so take a moment and look at each one. Okay. Now, the idea is I'm going to say a sentence and then I'm going to ask you a question. And what you're going to do is basically choose which one is the correct answer to that question. Okay? Now, I'm going to repeat each one 2 times and then one more time, then we'll check our answer. So let's start with number 1. Okay, so everybody look at the screen and listen. And again, write their answer on your paper. Don't use the microphone or the chat box right now. All right, so number 1. The number is 15134567 214. Which number did I say? Okay, I'm going to repeat it again. The number is 15134567 214. Which number did I say? Okay, here's number 2. Would you like the super salad? Which one is the answer? Would you like the super salad? Which one is the answer? Number 3. John, said his boss, you are late. Who said the information? Okay, listen again. John, said his boss, you are late. Who said the information? Okay, finally, number 4. She has a house, boat, and a car. How many things does she have? She has a house, boat, and a car. How many things does she have? Okay, I'm going to say the ones one more time. Number 1, the number is 15134567 214. Number 2, would you like the super salad? Number 3, John, said his boss, you are late. Number 4, she has a house, boat, and a car. Okay, let's check our answers. So number 1, the answer was B. Now, again, one of the things we're going to talk about in just a moment is, well, how do I understand my choices? So hopefully everyone recognized that letter A was a phone number. And when we say a phone number, it's going to be different from how we would say a number. Now, if someone can tell us, you can use your microphone. How would you say letter A for number 1? How would you say letter A? Who would like to tell us? So for number 1, how would you say A? Who could tell us? Okay, Saba, try number. How would you say letter A?
1-513-456-7214.
All right, very good. Yeah. So again, when we say phone numbers, right, we mentioned how we emphasize and pause. So again, numbers, for example, are an example of a thought group. Okay. All right. For number 2, the answer was super salad. Now, the question here is, how do I understand my choices? So, for example, who would like to try letter A? Let's see. Maybe Rena, would you like to try letter A for number 2? How would you say that one? What do you think?
Super salad.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, pretty good.
Same.
Yeah, pretty good. But again, it is a question. So listen, everybody, again. Super salad. Super salad. Yeah, so that's the idea. Now, listen to letter B again. Super salad. Super salad. Super salad, right? That would be letter A. So again, I'm going to use my annotation tool. So one of the things you'll review this week is how do we say different thought groups? So again, in this case, super, so notice we link super salad, super salad, super salad. Would you like the super salad? So again, notice we would put focus on the two words, soup, salad. But in letter B, would you like the super salad? So notice super would be the important word in this particular group, right? So again, that's the challenge. The challenge is in listening to the thought group, how would we say that? Okay, now let's move on to number 3. Now again, this is a quotation or dialogue like you would hear in a movie. So if you notice in this second example, in the answer, when I said who said it, well again, if you notice, the difference is where we would place the quotations or the quotes that we would use here. So for example, here, listen again, John, then notice we go down, said his boss, pause, right? You are late. So again, usually when we use this kind of reporting language, we would go down using our, maybe you can see me there in the camera, we would go down in our pitch for this part of the sentence. Now, again, part of the challenge is understanding our choices. So for example, so for example, oops, sorry guys, I moved screens there. Let me try this again. So if you notice, in this case, John, notice the beginning, John said. So in this case, if we were thinking about letter A being the answer, well, then the first part of the sentence would sound different. Instead of saying John said his boss, right? That's what we had in the first example here. But here, if we're saying that John said something, then the punctuation would look different and our voice would be different. John said his boss, so he would say something different, right? He would actually, we would raise the intonation starting with the beginning of the quotation. Now, again, this is something you're going to review a little bit more again this week in one of the activities that I'll have put together for you, okay? And then finally, for number 4, again, he has 3 things. And if you remember last week, we referred to this as a series. And this is the series that you are practicing with in the speaking activity, the Blue Valley Inn activity that you did with me last week and that you're practicing with this week. So again, if you notice, since we have 3 things, we would say a house, right, that hesitation, a boat, and a car. So in this case, I was trying to trick you a little bit because if we had only 2 things, for example, it might sound like this. If you notice on the screen, then we would have only 2 things. She has a houseboat and a car. She has a houseboat and a car. So notice we wouldn't say house, boat, we'd say houseboat. Yeah, so in this case, if we had only 2 things, then that first word, houseboat, and a car. So in this case, we would not pause, right? We wouldn't separate house, boat, and a car. So once again, the idea is we're thinking about thought groups and the different ways that thought groups can be organized, and notice how the information can change. So again, for number 1, we went from a phone number to just some ID number. Who knows what that second number is? For number 2, we notice some confusion when it comes to sounds that often link. So like soup, super salad, super salad. See, listen again, super salad, super salad. So we notice again, there's a slightly different intonation pattern and a slightly different focus. In the first, we have 2 words that have focus. In the second, we have only 1 word, super salad. For number 3, quotations. Again, we can change the order of a quotation. We can change where the reporting information is occurring, and we say it differently. So that's something you're going to practice with again this week. And for the last one, when it comes to choices, order. In this case, how many items do we have? 3, 4, 2? So again, listening for that hesitation and listening for our voice, that's what can help us, okay? All right, so I'm going to clear the screen with my drawings, but let's go ahead and move on to our next activity. But I just want to remind you, all of these are examples of thought groups. So you're going to be doing a listening activity this week, practicing with those. All right, so guys, we've got one more listening activity that we're going to do. So if you've got your paper ready. Now, in this case, I'm going to be reading some information. Some of it is complete, some of it is not. What I want you to try to identify is what kind of intonation was I using? So for example, in number one, is this a yes or no question, or is this a statement? Number two, do you hear a hesitation, or is it a WH question? Number three, is it a WH question or a yes or no question? And then finally, number four, is it a statement, or again, do I use a hesitation? So once again, I'm going to read each one 2 times. And what I want you guys to do is on your paper, again, you will choose the answer. All right. So again, 2 times, and then we'll continue. All right. So here is number one. So just listen. Are you coming to the party tonight? Are you coming to the party tonight? Number two. If you are going, if you are going, number three. Who is your friend here? Who is your friend here? And finally, number four. I don't know if he's available. I don't know if he's available. Okay, now I'm not going to say them again, so I'm just going to go ahead and give the answers so you can see how you did. So for again, number one was a yes or no question. And if you notice, part of it, if you were paying attention to the words, but also if you listened to my intonation, right? Are you coming to the party tonight? So remember, yes or no questions have what we call rising intonation. So my voice was going up, okay? All right, number two is a little tricky because I didn't finish the sentence, and that's because I hesitated. So if you notice in letter A, hesitation, if you are going, so notice how my voice went up and down. So we practiced this in our online chat last week, but notice I didn't finish. You were waiting for more information. So again, that's a hesitation. All right, number three is a WH question. Now we had 2 different questions. Remember, yes or no questions have a rising intonation, okay? But WH questions have a rising and slightly falling intonation, and usually on what we call the content word, the last content word, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And then finally, for number four, I tricked you a little bit. I included the word if, but this was not a hesitation. So in this case, it's just a simple statement. And remember, statements generally have that kind of rising and then falling, more falling intonation. So again, listen to them one more time. Are you coming to the party tonight? If you are going, who's your friend here? Who's your friend here? And then finally, I don't know if he's available. So notice of that falling intonation. So once again, you'll be practicing with that in this week's activities as well, okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on because our time's getting a little short, but you're going to do a listening activity with intonation as well. All right, so guys, I'm going to take maybe the last few minutes and just kind of introduce what your topic is going to be this week. So again, we've talked about focus. So last week we discussed the following topics. We talked about intonation, just kind of introduced it, and hopefully you'll watch the videos. Focus words, which we'll talk about again, and then thought groups. And again, you'll be reviewing those ideas in an activity. Now, I'll have this activity ready by Friday, okay? But let's talk a little bit about our topic, what that the main topic is going to be, and that's about how we use focus, especially when we need to change focus. Now, once again, I'm going to use the drawing tool, but once again, you will notice that we use focus in different ways. We usually use focus to attend, really to attend to specific information in a sentence. So in general, if you remember from the video last week, we normally place focus on the last content word of a sentence or question. Now, we're going to look at some examples. I also want to remind you that we also put the focus on the negative words in the sentence most of the time, not all the time, but we often put focus on the negative word. So, for example, so let's look at some examples I have here on the next screen. I'm going to use my pen tool just to illustrate. So one more time, I'm going to say each one. You can repeat it just there to yourself at home. You don't have to use the mic. But for example, for statements, generally the last focus word, the focus word would be the last content word. So for example, I need to go to work. And we would use a falling intonation, right? So work would be the focus. For yes or no questions, remember again, the last content word, we would use rising intonation. Is she taking the bus to school? Is she taking the bus to school? So notice that rising intonation. You may have also seen from the videos tag questions. Again, tag questions often use that rising intonation as well. So for example, you know the answer, don't you? Don't you? So notice you would be where the tag and where the rising intonation would normally be. For WH questions, we would rise and then fall a little bit. So what time is the class? What time is the class? Now, many students get that confused with the rising intonation. Again, rising intonation is when our voice still keeps going up, up, up. To school, class, class. Okay, again, try that difference. School, class. Yeah, so again, it's a little different. For hesitations, remember we often use hesitations, and we generally put focus on the words that are part of the choices. So again, notice we would say, I'd like a hamburger, French fries, and a milkshake. And notice milkshake, we might use a little bit more rising and falling intonation because that's the end of that particular group. So again, we would think of hesitations perhaps as, for example, as part of a group. And then finally, when we talked about can and can't, one of the reasons why can't, or can't as I say it, is generally stronger than the other words in the sentence is because it's negative. So that's why we often hear it more clearly. So if you'll notice here, we would put the focus on the word can't. So again, we would say, he can't help you. He can help you. Notice that's where the focus is. Now, again, guys, the question becomes how long are these sentences? So yes, these are just short sentences, short examples. But again, we're trying to begin somewhere, and that's really what we're talking about here today, is to understand the basic ideas of intonation and focus. All right, I'm going to move on because again, our time's getting away from us. So this week you're going to be talking and learning about changes in focus. So the thing I want to remind everybody is English speakers do not always place the focus in these predictable situations. They can often change focus in a sentence. So that's what you're going to be learning about this week. So for example, you will see how we change focus to show comprehension when we're in a conversation, and what happens when we add new information in a conversation. So that's one thing you're going to learn this week. Another thing you're going to learn about is when we make a correction to someone. When someone has the wrong information, we often change focus to put emphasis on the corrected information. And then finally, we use focus to add special emphasis. Now, I'm just going to quickly demonstrate those here as we're getting close to the end. So for example, to show comprehension, English speakers will often change focus to show that we're following the progression of a topic, especially when new information is introduced. So for example, follow this little conversation. And again, I'm using normal focus at the beginning. Hey, have you seen my keys? The keys, right? There's the focus. Notice I say, which ones? Right? So ones would be the focus, again, the normal focus in the next question. But now notice some new information is being introduced. The car keys, not the house ones. The car keys, not the house ones. So notice now we're entering new information, not just any keys, they're car keys and not the house keys. And then finally, the person might say, yeah, I know which ones you're talking about. So notice the word know becomes the focus because now I'm showing you, okay, I understand what you're saying. Of course, I know which keys you're looking for. So often people will change focus. They will move the focus word, not from just this typical place at the end of a sentence, but often they will move it when new information is introduced or to show comprehension. So in other words, they add a focus to a particular word to say, yes, I understand, and this is what you're talking about. Okay, so that's something you're going to learn more about this week. Another way we change focus is when we make corrections. So often when people have the wrong information, we often put the focus on the corrected information. And that's, in this case, often you will see the focus move from a content word to words that we normally don't focus, a structure word. Now, follow in this situation. Hi, Stephen, how are you doing? So again, that's normal focus, right? Doing. I'm John. He's Stephen. So notice already I'm making a correction. This person was wrong. I'm not Stephen, I'm John. So notice I put focus on I'm John. Now notice we don't normally focus on I'm, and we normally don't focus on he's. So again, you're correcting, you're pointing to somebody else. Okay, let's continue. Oh, sorry. So how was your trip to Mexico? So notice normal focus, last word of the sentence. Well, it was Cincinnati, but it was okay. So notice in this case, I'm correcting the person again. It's not Mexico, it was Cincinnati. Yeah, nothing quite so exciting. So in this case, I corrected the person by putting emphasis on Cincinnati. So notice Cincinnati is an important word, but it's not the last word of the sentence. So again, often we will use changes in focus to make corrections. This is something else you're going to learn a little bit more about this week. And finally, we use changes in focus to add special emphasis. So often we put special emphasis on words like articles or pronouns to show some particular strong emotion. For example, if I don't believe you or I'm amazed at something. For example, maybe I'm in a classroom and you don't believe that that's the teacher. And someone says, yeah, that's the teacher. You mean she's the teacher? Like, I don't believe you. Like, I thought it was somebody else. So in this case, I'm showing disbelief. You mean he's the person? You mean you are the one? So again, often we might put focus on a simple word like the pronoun because maybe we don't believe you. Okay, here's another one. Look over there. That is the president of the United States. So not just anybody, but the one, the real one, right over there. So notice I emphasize the word the. And that's because maybe I can't believe that I'm seeing this person right now. Okay. And then finally, maybe you want to show somebody, you want to impress someone. So you might say, hey, I just got the new Samsung Galaxy phone. So maybe, again, you want to make them feel a little jealous. I got the new one. Yeah, the best one or the most expensive. So I'm basically asking you, hey, aren't you impressed? I bought this new phone. So again, we often use changes in focus to show different things, different emotions, different feelings. So that's what you're going to be doing here this week. Okay? Now, guys, our time is basically up. I just want to remind everybody. So again, this week, we were recording ourselves. So don't forget that your recordings are due by Friday. Now, some of you have already emailed me your recordings, and that's great. But I'm going to be available after this meeting. I'm going to stick around for a few minutes if anybody has any questions about recording yourself or emailing it to me. Okay? And I also will have some times available tomorrow. So I'll send out some available times in case anybody wants to stop by and ask me any questions. Okay? All right, so next time, our next class assignment will be posted on Friday. So I'll post that on our Google Classroom. You'll have a video to watch about changes in focus, and then you'll do a listening activity. And this one is going to be a little bit different from the two activities we've done before. So when I have it posted, you'll see how it works. But it'll be, again, reviewing focus, changes in focus, intonation, thought groups, all of the things we've talked about for the last 2 weeks. And again, these activities will be due by next Friday, so May 1st. So hard to believe we're getting into May at this point. Okay, finally, guys, the TOEFL workshop starts tomorrow evening. So again, I've sent out some emails. Hopefully some of you will be able to attend. I'm sorry that it's in the evening, but that was the most popular choice. So, but I am going to record it. So if you can't join us, don't worry, you can watch the video and you can still follow along. So next, this Thursday, we're going to do the essay and how to write an introduction. Next week is how to develop the body of an essay. And then Thursday will be how to talk about the May 7th, the conclusion and wrap up. Okay, well, guys, our time's up here for today. I am going to send you the sign out. So, guys, if you can sign out for me, I really would appreciate it. And I'm going to stick around for a few minutes in case we have any other questions about recording ourselves. So, guys